In Argentina, there is no joint custody law. In most cases, the judge grants custody to the mother. When my parents split up, I was 8 years old. The only thing I knew is that my father left, my mother cried, she was a mess. Their separation had a bigger impact on me when I was older. I couldn't see my father because, in the beginning, my mother didn't want me to see him. She refused. My father came to my house a couple of times, and my mother told me to stay upstairs. She would come down and wouldn't let him see me. She'd threaten him. She even hit him a few times. And I didn't see him for nearly 2 years. I remember everything I went through. Especially because my eldest daughter is going through the same thing now. Her mother quickly moved away with her. Daddy, you are so nice. Thank you for being my daddy. When she lived here, she's 10 now. When she was in 2nd grade, she didn't let me see her during that entire year. I couldn't be with her, not even for a weekend. I couldn't see her at all. During that year, I only saw her when I went to the school during the breaks, to see her during the school breaks. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had any contact with her during the entire year. My case was in court for 6 years, until finally the mother eased off the visitation schedule. Otherwise, maybe even today, I'd still not be able to see her. It's been 1 year since I last saw my daughter. I haven't been able to see my daughter for 1 year and 20 days. I see my daughter only 2 hours during the weekends, in a public square. I see my daughter every 3 months. I've been fighting for 4 years, and at present I see my daughter 10 minutes a week. I see my son only when his mother wants to. Erasing dad. In case of court-ordered separation, custody of children under 5 years of age is granted to the mother, except for a serious reason affecting the child's interest. Article 206 of the Civil Law, at least in its current wording, is a discriminatory law. It came from the false idea that women are fitter, always more suitable than men, to raise their children, that men not only have to prove their aptitudes, but also attack women's aptitudes. Contrary to that, the same does not apply to women. There is a sort of automation in the application of the law that springs from the idea of one parent being more capable than the other one, distinguished specifically by gender. This is insane, not only because Article 6 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child states every child's right to live with both parents, except in dangerous situations, but also because it's what we learn in life. We learn that it is reasonable for children to grow up with their parents, and for us parents to have contact with our children. Many times, preventing contact with the other parent has to do with an unresolved situation between the parents. It has to do with a sort of hatred towards the other person. Or it also has to do with the need to harm the other person. Hidden camera. Mateo. What's the matter? Come here. I was just leaving. How are you? I want to go with Daddy. What's the matter? No, we're going to talk later. Daddy! Say hi to your daddy. I want to go with Daddy. I'm sorry, son. No, today is not possible. Why? Because I don't want to. Why? Not like this, Sergio. Look how he gets. He gets sad. They get like this thanks to you. Why? I told you no. But they have to come with me. No. You make me call the police. Go ahead and call them. Make a complaint. They have to come with me. I said no. Why not? Because I said so. Why is that? There is an order. Yes. I want to go with Daddy. Come, Mateo. I want to go with Daddy. Come here. Let's talk. Come here, let's talk. I want to go with Daddy. You're going to come with me, don't worry. Come here, let's talk. I want to go with Daddy. See, this is your fault, because you influence them. See how they get? How you influence? Come on, Sergio, please. I want to go with Daddy. You're going to come with me, don't worry. In some cases, we observe severe personality disorders with paranoid and narcissistic traits which, many times, actually harm the children. Can you send me a patrol car? I'm here with the children's mother. I have an order from Judge of Guarantees number 9 to pick them up from school, and she doesn't allow me to pick them up. I'm going home. No, you're not going home. The kids have to come with me. When we get home, we're going to talk. No, I'll be calmed, not like this, arguing in front of everyone. No, you have to give them to me. Why don't you want to? How can you let the kid cry like that? You're making him nervous. What did I do? I'm telling you, Sergio, don't make him cry. He's crying as he leaves. He's telling you, I want to go with Daddy. You're making everyone nervous. Calm down. I am calmed. Why don't you let me have them? Because you're not good. I have a paper at home. You have a document that says he's not going to take them. No. And what is it? No, you have the same paper, signed by the judge, by the secretary, with your signature and mine, that says I have to pick him up from school. The kids come first, of course. You can't allow Lucas to cry like this. And if you take him away from me, like that to the other side, no, you can't really do that. He's telling you he wants to go with Dad. I want to go with Daddy. Yes, he's not right. He is obviously not right. He wants to be with his dad, and he's not right. He's not right, I see. Every time the father starts visiting the children, no, he's ill. He's not feeling well. And so the father, to avoid trouble, goes away. No, he's very tired. No, because... And so she begins to do this little by little. Do you have anything that controverts this? Is there anything preventing this gentleman from picking him up? The children, as stated here, on Thursdays and Fridays. Today's Friday from noon to 8. But unfortunately, not like this, sir. You come with me to the police station, you're violating a legal ordinance. Can you come home with me so that I can show you the paper? Where do you live? Diaz 720. Diaz? 720. Next block there. Half a block from here. You go ahead. I'll go later. I'll go and take the other kid who started crying. Hey, in this paper you signed, is there the judge's signature? Yes, the judge's signature and stamp. And is she fucking crazy? The secretary's signature right here. She's gonna go to jail, of course. And he already has a copy of it. Stay calm. Don't argue with Mom. Because then she gets mad at you, okay? I want to be with you. Okay, but I take care of fighting for that. Don't argue with Mom, because then she gets mad at you, okay? You spoke to the court that she has to go and take the kid to the police station. The court didn't want that. And that you pick him up from the school. I said to the judge, here's the pointless trouble. I told the judge, I specifically asked him, because we've had this kind of trouble, that she takes him to the police station and you pick him up there. Exactly. And you take him back to the police station. That's what I asked the court, and the judge said, no, ma'am, you have to be adults, and you have to give him the children. That's what I asked him. And she said, yes, I'll give them to him. Okay, great. Let's wipe the slate clean. I just saw the kid, and he doesn't want to. So you do as I told you. Say goodbye as if nothing happened. Yes, everything is cool. Whenever you want, we can talk. He's 10 now. It's not like when we were kids. They're smarter, okay? Yes, but she committed a crime here. She's the one who said no. Now you ask the kids, speaking plainly. I gave her a good telling off. Just because you want it, you can't state whether he takes the kid or not. I have a court order to abide by, okay? Let me take the kid. How old is he? 10. The mother introduces him to me. Mateo, you don't want to go with your dad because you don't want to, or because your mother doesn't want you? No, I don't want to go with Dad, he says. I don't want to. Well, I don't know. Think it over. Has anything happened with Dad in his house? Yes. No, because... And he mentioned things that are adult concerns. He doesn't pay alimony. Yes, this happens. That's not your business. That's something Mom deals with in court, and she's been doing that for the adults. You have to think your father comes to see you. He picks you up. I don't know what you guys do. If you go to the square, you have to make the most of the time Dad has to be with you. Decisions are not made by children, but by adults. When a kid is put in a situation where he or she has to make a decision, that's terrible. This is psychological violence, since you are instilling in them the possibility of breaking rules. which are the rules established whether by the judge or by arrangements between the parents or whatever. When the mother tells me, well, but my son doesn't want to go, my daughter doesn't want to go, I can't force him. I always tell them the same. What do you do when he tells you he doesn't want to go to school, or that he doesn't want to go to the doctor? What do? You don't make him do it? The minute she doesn't give you your daughter, you go straight to the nearest police station. You file a complaint against your wife, and immediately the judge will call you both. We'll set up a court hearing. She will have to explain why she didn't give you your daughter, and she will be sanctioned or not. Though this carries a sentence of up to 3 years imprisonment, in the beginning, some judges, we had in our firm actually just one case where the mother was prosecuted and received a sort of accessory sentence with a fine. But really behind the bars, no, it's impossible. In fact, judges from the criminal and correctional justice system, where this is dealt with, do not deem this a crime, regardless of the fact it's in the law. They don't believe the ultima ratio, that is, the final argument the legislators sought when legislating this as a crime to be under their jurisdiction. They believe this always has to be settled in a civil jurisdiction. I went to the police station to file a complaint, 24-27, for impediment of contact. They didn't want to take it, as it usually happens. I went to the prosecutor's office. I didn't settle for it. I went to the prosecutor's office. Since it was Sunday, they told me, the prosecutor isn't here. Well, he has to be here. That's why we pay him to be here, and there's a prosecutor's officer here on the day off. Well, the police station, they don't want to take the complaint, so you take it. No, they don't at the police station. So not at the police station, not here. Not there? Okay, fine. I'll go to the state attorney general. And I'll report the prosecutor who's not on duty, the police station for concealment of a public officer's duties. When I said that, she says, okay, go ahead. The law is currently in force, yet it's not applied, due to a decision of the institutions in charge of applying it, especially the public prosecutor's office. Prosecutors do not apply the law. It's like most legal operators, prosecutors, judges, believe the law is not properly written, and they act as legislators and even repeal it. When I was leaving, she told me, where do you think you're going? To file a complaint against you. Sit down, I'll take your complaint. Article 3 of the law states they have 10 days to solve this. They only took 6 months. 6 months during which I couldn't see my sons, thanks to the lack of concern from the prosecutor's office. And family court number 2. I had a visitation schedule, but it was not complied with. My visitation schedule was temporary and wasn't complied with. The mother always violated the visitation schedules. I filed complaints several times. At the San Martin Women's Police Station, all the officers know me. When I get there, they ask me, and now what, baby? At the San Martin Family Court, they know me in all 11 floors. Everyone tells me, go do this, go do that. But when you're dealing with kids, nobody wants to get involved. Kayla and Belen, Daddy loves you. San Martin Family Court, you have to be very lucky. If you get a judge or a prosecutor or whom working ex officio who doesn't take his time to read the file, as for example in my case, you can spend years without seeing your children. My daughters changed schools. They went to approximately 10 different schools in 6 or 7 years. They went here for 1 year. This is the second kindergarten Belen went to. They spent 2 years studying here. She went to this school for 5 months. My daughters lived with their mother. During an entire week, they called me on the phone every day, all the time, Daddy, we want to live with you. We no longer want to be with Mom, because they moved to a new house in Alienated. So I was very confused. I didn't know what to do. Do I chance it? They're my daughters. I'm their father, so I preserve their safety. So they came one weekend. They stayed at my place, and as of that moment, I didn't give them back to the mother. As a result, I had to start taking care of the school so that they'd continue, and my job changed. It was quite a change for me, too. It wasn't easy, but it was really nice. On June 12, 2011, the mother showed up out of the blue. after 5 or 6 months of not calling them to see how they were. She went to the school and picked them up. Then the relationship was broken. As of that moment, I never saw them again. This is the last school Michaela went to. The last school before I couldn't see her again. Coming here brings me a lot of memories. I'm angry because I can't be with my daughters. When they study, I can't take them to school. I can't come to a parents' meeting. I'm angry because I'm losing all that. I haven't seen my son for 1 year. It's been 1 year and 2 months since I last saw my daughter. I haven't been able to see my son for 1 year and 4 months. I haven't been able to see my daughter for 1 year and a half. I spent 18 months without seeing my children. I wrote letters to my father, calling him names, and laughing at what he did because my mother told me to. And it was fine. It's one of the things I truly regret doing, but I was 8. I couldn't cope with it. She's your mother, and when you're little, your mother is everything. How can you imagine your mother is going to lie to you, or that your mother is going to tell you something to hurt your father? You have to realize she does it, and it hurts you deeply, because it's a scar you carry in your soul. It's a terrible thing. At the top of it off, the mother says, I leave it up to the kid. If he or she doesn't want to see him, it's not my fault. It's like the brainwash and such that the kids say they don't want to. If daddy comes, you won't be allowed to use the PlayStation. You won't go to the play in the square or go to your friends' birthday parties. So the poor kid says, no, I don't want to be with my daddy. And daddy becomes a monster. Your father is bad. Your father abandoned you. Your father doesn't love you. He doesn't pay alimony. He left with another lady. He preferred her over you. And so the kid starts believing it, because they don't have the other side of the story to tell them the opposite. Has my mother taught me to hate my father? Yes, she taught me to hate him, to write him letters, to hang up on him, to publicly humiliate him. And my mother has taken delight in those things I did. And yes, you end up really messed up. A kid who doesn't see his father doesn't know. Knowing he can't see him, it's not that he died or disappeared or is in jail. It's not that he's disappeared, but rather that someone made him disappear, with the protection of the legal system, the application of the laws, making the kid an orphan of a living father. It's unacceptable. One week after she left, she called me saying, if I don't sign the agreement, she doesn't allow me to see my son. So she already started with all this. So I went and signed something that wasn't convenient for me, and that very same day, she went to the domestic violence office and filed the first false complaint. She accused me of not having a room for the kid at home, and she lived with me, and our son had his own bedroom. The father always speaks to him in Russian, not in Spanish. He gives him books in Russian. Horrible, right? Poor boy. By the end of March, I went to the kindergarten, and he wasn't there. They told me someone had picked him up earlier. I texted her saying, it's my day. I want to take Sasha with me. I got no reply. That happened twice. The third time I went to the kindergarten, one of the teachers came out and told me he no longer went to that kindergarten, and she didn't know where he went now. I really don't know where my son is now, but at the same time, the police told me I have to go in person, ring the bell, and see if he's there. The thing is, with so many false accusations, I fear if I go near the house, she'll file another false accusation. I'll be even worse than now. The same law states the judge will have 10 days, 10, 5 and 5, 10 to recover the relationship. The last complaint I filed for obstruction of contact was in June. Now we're in November, right? So how long has it been? I think more than 10 days have gone by. So, not even the criminal justice system is working. They are not enforcing the laws, and under no circumstances, they are acting on the child's best interests. I went through the entire city, to every child protection agency, and none of them would see me. I ended up in the domestic violence office. Domestic violence office is a relatively new office, which started working in September 2008. It's an office that works 24/7, made up by a multidisciplinary team. That is, we have women psychologists, social workers, lawyers, doctors. Most of them are women, but we also have some men working. And its primary purpose is to receive people who show up at the office describing an event involving situations of domestic violence. When I got there, she was already there with her mother. And what happened? As soon as I got in, I was carrying my son over my shoulders, so both of them started pulling his legs to and fro. And I couldn't even put him down. My son started screaming. One shoe fell off. And she yelled at me, "Give him to me, give him to me." And I couldn't do anything since they were pulling his legs to and fro, my son's legs. So a couple of cops came. They told me to move. They said, and I quote, "The kid is the mother's property." And then, since allegedly there was a dangerous situation, there really was, but thanks to her and her mother, she went upstairs and they told me to come back later. And that's how they treated me. I filed the same complaint, exactly the same one. But instead of writing Maria, I write Jose as the plaintiff. And nothing happens. I write Maria and the court takes action. I write Maria and the Office of Domestic Violence takes action. I write Maria and they declare it a 4th degree violence. I write Jose saying the mother is doing all this, and they don't believe him. That's how it is. We had one case of a couple who had divorced, both business people. She had a lot of money and was very determined. When she was with her sons and they spoke about their father, she'd beat them up. So one day we sent the father here to the domestic violence office. He took his 11-year-old son with a black eye and his sister crying, and the psychologist and the lawyer on duty kicked him out, literally saying, "Stop lying." How can a woman, a mother, beat up her children? But what's the worst thing that can happen to me? Worse than now? Will you be able to face an interview with professionals who will make you unpleasant questions? Look, more unpleasant than now. They will ask you questions for 2.5 hours. What kind of questions? But you've never hit her, and you're sure you've never hit her. Here it says you drink alcohol. Haven't you threatened her? That kind of questions, and in that tone. I'm prepared for that. Well, you'll have to wait several hours. And I'll tell you this, can we do it now? The thing is that there is, in the case, I don't know how many others, 2, 4. They're all lies. Well, if you insist, I'll... But what can happen to me? I mean, worse than now. No, they're going to make a report saying that even though you are the one telling your story, it's hard to believe. And the lady is in a dangerous situation because you're lying. I tell you this in plain domestic English. That's what the report will say. It means it'll directly say I'm lying, even though, yes, most likely because she came here to file a complaint, and since she's a woman, it's her they believe. But is this standard practice? Is it legal? Yes, no, but it's the usual practice. How can that be if it's not legal? Because here there is a group of professionals whom the Supreme Court has regarded as specialists. is gender-based violence, and they realize when a man lies, and they always lie, they realize believing what a male parent says is certainly much more difficult and awkward, since it's almost even politically incorrect to take the children away from the mother. When a person specialized in gender studies takes the statement and testimony, observes, analyzes, listens to a woman who's been abused, is able to easily detect if the person is lying or not. The system works with a higher degree of acceptance, of the credibility of women's discourse than that of men, and not based on the discourse's strength, on the evidence, but rather on gender, and this is serious. 15 months without my daughters. Mariana and Jimena, I love you. I wasn't allowed to see my son for 1 year and a half. I haven't been able to see my daughter for 1 year and 10 months. It's been nearly 2 years since I was last allowed to see my son. I haven't seen my son for 2 years. Jorge Corsi, I made a choice in my life within the framework of the human rights paradigm, with a gender-based perspective aimed at helping improve people's quality of life. In 1989, Jorge Corsi made the first master's degree in families violence. In Corsi's curricula, there are no subjects dealing neither with female violence nor with men as victims. Syllabus course: Psychology of Violent Men. Assistance to abused women. Assistance to violent men. Jorge Corsi trained people in the following countries: Buenos Aires, Santa Fe, Tierra Fuego, San Luis, Mendoza, La Pampa, Rosario, Posados, Salta, Chubut, Chaco, Brazil, Germany, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay, Cuba, Mexico, United States, Nicaragua, Spain, Dominican Republic, Canada, Australia. Corsi has been called upon by OAS, United Nations, the Supreme Court of Argentina, the National Civil Appeals Chamber, apart from being consulted as an expert by several family courts in the field. Those who studied with me became multiplying agents, who generated most of the violence and sexual harassment services in the federal capital of Buenos Aires, and the rest of the provinces of Argentina and in Uruguay. Corsi designed a method for diagnosing sexual abuse and violence which is still used today. It is called the Corsi method. The Corsi method was a series of 28 questions by which it could be decided if an offender was guilty or not. Corsi also designed the Violent Man test. This test can be filled out without interviewing the alleged violent man. Shocking news, the detention of the famous psychologist who, according to researchers, would be the head of a band of pedophiles, a band who took minors, seduced them, and carried out a psychological work to then use them for sexual parties, with adults to be recorded, filmed, and uploaded to the web. They told them sex has to be free. It's okay to have sex with us because we're friends and our relationship goes beyond a friendship. But don't worry, we're going to take you to a mind specialist. And only then Corsi showed up. When the scandal broke out on the news, all the courts were filled. Traffic lights, buildings, abuse corp, pedophiles with power, filled with these signs. The judges had knowledge of this relationship for 8 years. And what did they do in 8 years? Nothing. Nothing at all. We realized Corsi had a high degree of impunity and, in the long run, things were very messy due to that impunity. Because, as I see it, and this is my personal opinion, he considered himself superior. He told the truth and the victim lied. Exactly the opposite of what he wrote in his books. Exactly. A book that, until then, was reference material, as far as I know, for psychologists. We're not talking about just any psychologist. Believe me, this will never be proved. This is an authoritative argument. It's a fallacy that this is like this because I say so. The psychologist convicted for corruption and sexual abuse of minors went to the courts. Corsi will have to serve 3 years of actual imprisonment, after settling trial with no oral argument, in return for pleading guilty to his crimes. What will happen next, and this is terrible, is that a group of people will take advantage of Jorge Corsi's situation in order to question everything that has been ruled so far regarding sentences. Word has it they will even ask for a right of appeal for all sentences in which Jorge Corsi may have been involved. This is outrageous. Being health professionals, understanding about the subject, and working with him, how come they didn't realize of what was going on? Why should we realize? This is overrating our social role as psychologists and trying to turn us into a sort of psychic who are able to see beyond what the rest of mortals see. Corsi was part of a group, and there are several people from this group still working, in my opinion, with complete impunity. Even today, I see in some places, either as part of the doctrine, paragraphs written by Corsi being quoted, or articles which have been quoted by Corsi, or people who write articles based on Corsi's ideas. The World Health Organization states violence harms people. The definition conflicts with what Corsi said. When speaking about a type of violence whose ultimate aim is not to harm people. He was the director of the violence master's degree at the Faculty of Psychology, and yet he never spoke of feminine violence. I had submitted a dissertation on feminine violence. Feminine violence, a politically incorrect perspective, giving notice of these issues that tend to occur. And my dissertation disappeared, was shelved. It never existed. Jorge Corsi pleaded guilty. At present, he is serving his time in jail. He refuses to receive psychological treatment. The master's degree created by Jorge Corsi and its curricula are still current even today at the University of Buenos Aires. The day I left, when I was packing my things, Claudia grabbed the boy, whom I had given to her when I decided to leave. I had handed her the boy because she was trying to snatch him from me. I gave her the boy and she came carrying the boy in her arms. Went to the door of the room where I slept on the floor and told the boy, "Look at your father, because you're not going to see him again." I haven't seen my children for 2 years and 10 months. I haven't been allowed to see my daughter for 3 years. I spent 3 years without seeing my daughter. When I was still living with her, the boy was not even 1 year old. One day, she beat me up badly. Well, I made funny faces to the boy, like in Life is Beautiful, so that he didn't realize, because it was all happening in front of him, so that he believed it was a game. Then I went to Riviera Hospital, verified injuries, which weren't very severe except for some in my leg, of which I still have scars. And then I went to the family violence office at 1200 Lavelle Street, and I started filling out a complaint. Somebody called me. I turned, and this person said, "Look, Mr. Newbery, I shouldn't be telling you this, but they told me what you are doing, and I came down to tell you you've been badly advised, because if I process your complaint, I'll have to throw you out of your home." "What?" I said. "I've been brutally beaten up, and you want to kick me out of my home?" She said yes, because the law clearly states that in case of domestic violence with a minor involved, the person who has to leave is the man. The professionals who hear the story analyze certain signs, and that's enough for passing a precautionary measure, since they are precisely cautionary measures that are not part of the liability statement, but rather aimed at preventing future events. It is a tool which, if properly used with enough evidence, and singularly, that is, addressing each specific case, with due grounds, then in some cases, it might even bring about a restraining space, giving way to certain consideration, and then to an indictment of the case, but the violent person can't be stopped by a written notification from a judge stating he or she can't get close. The presence of the man in the household is really troublesome. In the case of a powerful man, taking the children away from a woman, there she has to fight for her own recovery, since she's subject to gender-based violence, and she has to fight to be with her children. In that case, there's nothing else to do but fight for it. But men are not subject to gender-based violence, so they can wait. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, depending on the characteristics. They don't even investigate whether it actually happened. Then some time went by. My life was a living hell. And one day, when she was also violent, the boys started crying. So I packed my things and I left, because this was harmful to the boy. I didn't know what else to do, but packing my things and leaving. Some men have called saying they are victims of domestic violence, and they've left their home, that their wife has economically abused them, or in some other aspect, so something simple. In order to understand more about it is to ask if there has been any complaint for violence and who has filed it. And many times men say there is a pre-existing violent event. My wife filed a complaint against me some time ago, and I left home because I was excluded. And then in that case, they obviously spoke to Claudia. They had an interview with her. They believed her. And just like that, without any examinations, without visiting the house, without talking to the child, they ruled, I was the violent person and I was lying. Even though there were no witnesses to the threat, the court of law proved the man subjected his ex-wife to psychological pressure and convicted him to 6 months of prison sentence held in suspense. It is unprecedented criminal ruling for this type of gender-based violence. It's not common for a woman to make up she was beaten, or that her children were beaten, or that he doesn't pay alimony, or any form of violence. I believe men lie. It is paramount to recover the principle of equality before the law, which also implies not prejudging explanations for people's behavior based on their gender, because that's a violation of basic human coexistence rules. So far, as we have followed up on the 32,000 cases sent from this office, and none of them have the judges taken testimony to investigate the possibility of a false statement or false accusation regarding the facts. Then a couple of days ago, very recently, the neighbors brought themselves to filing a complaint. I have no idea. I don't even know who they are. But they also recorded things in a sort of espionage job. Apparently they recorded the house's sounds and noises, filmed things clandestinely, and submitted them as evidence. And immediately the same minor family, etc., office, with a warrant from the judge, with the evidence and all, broke into the house, took the kid from her, and he's now in a halfway house,
está en un hogar de,
in a temporary home.
¿cómo se llama? Un hogar transitorio.
Poor kid, he doesn't have his father, his mother, we can't visit him, and they also forbade me. They forbade the mother from visiting him, which is reasonable, but they also forbade me from visiting him, due to this violent reputation and to all the false accusations she's filed. There was a huge amount of false accusations, many of them proven to be false, and yet, regarding the accusations, sometimes they prove to be false. And the person was many times deprived of the relationship with the child because no adequate research was carried out. In our country, there are no false accusation statistics, just as there are no sanctions for false accusations. There are no adequate punishments. Therefore, many times there are accusations in the files that are never proved. When they are actually proved, many years have gone by. I haven't been able to see my son for 4 years. It's been over 4.5 years since I last saw my children. I haven't seen my children for more than 4 years. She told me, "You leave home and I'll do anything I can to prevent you from seeing the girls. I'm going to cross you off as dad. I'm going to cross you off as dad." Those were her last words. I can't approach closer than 200 meters from the girls' school, or 200 meters from her house to avoid contact. Arguments that she may even initiate to avoid further trouble between us, or in this case. Until I don't have a visitation schedule, I have an obstruction. How do I get the visitation schedule? With an assisted rebonding. She doesn't show up to the assisted rebonding. I'll never have a visitation schedule. Nobody sets a limit to her, and time goes by. Suarez family, Perez family, Martinez family, Velez family, Diaz family. The delay in solving these kind of situations is always in the detriment of the children. There's no doubt about it. Because they take an eternity to decide. But they don't make a decision. In my case, they waited for the psychological test by an expert from the court. And they took 1 year to pay attention to the report. A completely favorable report was written by a court expert, and the mother, since it favored me, refuted it. And they took 1 year to make a decision. That can't happen. 1 year in the life of a 4-year-old child is 25% of their life. It's a very long time. We always believe time favors children. Strengthening the mother, having interviews with the mother's lawyer to put off certain things to gain time. The complaint has to be part of a strategy, which has to be previously agreed upon with her lawyers, psychologists. Protection measures are precautionary measures and have a given term. They are not eternal. If they had a possibility of extending too long, we could argue about it. But they usually have a maximum term of 120 days. In Argentina, separating the respondent implies no less than 6 months of no relationship, of no contact. Those 6 months can turn into 2 years, 3 years, depending on the level of obstruction from the mother, depending on how it is investigated. Today I prefer a violence complaint as a precautionary measure, which we can work on and put off, rather than a trail which, under the ideology of considering the father important for the child's development, may end up closing the possibility of protecting the victims. The psychologist from the domestic violence office says she had narrated 2 events involving physical abuse. One in which he threw a sponge at her. A sponge like the ones found in any bathroom, not something different. And the other one when he threw some shoes at her which she had put on the girl and which he hadn't liked. These are the two violent events which were used to ask for a custodial sentence, an arrest warrant for this man, due to his violence. In a separated couple with a child, a daughter. We asked if they had any independent means, apart from the mother's side, to at least verify the story. And they answered, the victim's story is understood as a diagnostic technique. It is not a mere story, it is a technical element. By this, the person listening understood, the same as me, that is nothing right because she didn't answer anything. And she said, the witness expresses, she considered the victim's story plausible. So she was asked, what does she mean by plausible? And she said, a person whose judgment is not impaired, that is, a person who is not psychotic or delusional. This means that any person who doesn't dress up as Napoleon or sings Marseille, for this type of analysis, this level of analysis, if the person appears not to be crazy, everything he or she says is true. And this is serious. This is serious when committed by a public officer who should be prepared to attend to these issues with greater responsibility. To get it right, this public officer is saying that it's irrelevant whether what they say is true or not, is veracious or not, if there is any minimum certainty in the stories they are telling. And she says it is an ideological stand, but she didn't explain what ideological concepts she refers to. But it's really striking that she did it in this way. And my point is, under these grounds, a little girl hasn't seen his father for almost a year now. Contrary to the standard practice, that any citizen is innocent until proven guilty, I believe in situations of gender-based violence, due to the dimension of the problem, the burden of proof must be reversed. That is, if I say he's guilty until he proves his innocence. This, seen from this perspective, is serious. Because people start prejudging. And one of the most sacred guarantees we citizens have, and all the inhabitants of the world, is that we are presumed to be good people, under a principle of good social faith. Rousseau, the social contract, believing in the other. Article 18 from the Argentine Constitution, the Connected Covenants, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the American Convention. They all create structures of credibility of people, and that every person is innocent until proved guilty. Through due process, where there have to be facts, evidence, counter-evidence, accusation, defense, and sentence. 4 years and a half without any contact with my daughters. I haven't seen my daughter for 5 years. I haven't been allowed to see my daughter for 6 years. It still has not been determined whether the boy sleeps in his own bed or in his parents' bed next to Cruz. When, at midnight, according to the scream, the elder sister claims to have heard, the woman drowned the little boy in the jacuzzi. Did you kill the boy? Yes. Why? To fuck up the father. She had been institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital in Quilmes for 40 days. There is a criminal complaint dated late February of this year. The father reports the woman apparently tried to threaten her children's life, giving them sleeping pills. Some specialists tell me that in the case of men, it's not as simple as in the case of women. That is, if a woman reports that her husband intends to do something like this, the children are quickly separated from the father. In the case of men, sometimes this doesn't happen, and this will have to bring today the functioning of civil law. The existence of that complaint is actually proved. Last night, the prosecutor was trying to certify it. Remember the crime on February 19th, 1 month before. He files a complaint at the Court of Women because she took pills and hung a rope, and she told the children, I'm going to kill you, or something like that. Instead of coming here, the case mistakenly goes to La Plata. And what did the prosecutor La Plata do with the accusation of attempted murder of the children? Nothing. I have the stamp here, 2 days after the death. See? And where was the complaint during that time? I don't know. What do we prioritize? A guy who says his wife is going to kill her children because he says she's crazy? This before the child's death? But it's not that he just said so. There were elements. It's not that he said so incoherently. Exactly. With the pile of work we have here, in this case, had got here involving a threat, I don't rule out the possibility of it being shelved. The system in general has not been able to detect the risk that 6-year-old boy was exposed to. Evidently, in a case with a severe personality disorder, like the one this woman suffered, the boy could not be taken care of. He was arguing with his younger brother in the kitchen, while the mother was in the bedroom. She heard a blow. He started bleeding, and the mother sutured the wound with glue. She gave him a painkiller, and the boy told her he had heavy headaches when he felt sick and that he was sleepy. She punished him by making him clean the yard because he had argued with his brother. My boy told her again he wanted to vomit and still had a headache, and she sent him to sleep. 4 hours later, the kid woke up bleeding again. He was admitted into the Fiorito hospital at 5 p.m. That is 5 hours later. They observe a skull fracture, order a tomography, and observe a severe hemorrhage in one of his hemispheres. At 9 p.m. she calls me. 9 hours later she calls me and tells me what had happened. And the doctor tells me, look, the mother says the younger brother hit him in the head with a stick, and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. But one day a female doctor told me, Daddy, can I talk to you? Sure. I went out to the hallway. When I remember, 2 doctors approached me and asked me, did you ever notice any sign of violence from the mother? Anything unusual? I told them, yes, there are many unusual things. They said, look, we filed a complaint at the police because one day while Mateo was in intensive care unit, he couldn't stop crying and asked for his dad. We went to him and asked him, what's the matter? Do you want us to call your mother? No, don't call my mom. Call my dad. What happened? My mom is evil. Why is she evil? Because she hit me in the head with a stick. And he kept repeating it. They filed the complaint at the police. Unfortunately, this had to happen for them to listen to me. But they didn't listen to me. The boy said, my mom hit me. It's in the clinical record. They took a copy of the clinical record certified by the Institute. 2 doctors said the same thing, not just one. We presented a precautionary measure at the family court, informing the child was going to come with me, what had happened, and that we requested immediate custody of the other 3 children since they were at risk after what had happened. I said to myself, well, this time family court number 2 will listen to me. But no, they didn't. They denied the precautionary measure. They said the kid goes with his mother. Having a case under investigation, being investigated, will you do this? Yes, because the Convention on the Rights of the Child speaks about rebonding. So I answered, the same convention says we must protect children. She said, sir, I advise you to cooperate with justice. Okay, fine. I'll cooperate with justice. I beg you to cooperate with the children. We got the secretary of the judge to receive us after a big fuss. And while I was submitting the copy, she showed up with the boy. What did the court do? They ordered police custody for her, since she felt intimidated by me being at the court. And she feared I might get violent. I told the secretary of the court, this is happening because of you, because now she leaves, protected by police custody with complete impunity, because you are letting her. I spent 1.5 years without seeing my kids because you allowed it. And when we encounter an aggressive woman, we clearly advise her to attend a center specialized in these issues. Center of parents who abuse their children. This gender-based perspective does not accept that a woman can be violent, and when it does, it uses every resource to assist her. But when a man is the suspect, punishment is always the answer. People say you defend women, but what about children? Children don't matter. These are criticisms we receive from associations or professionals who work only with children. Regarding those of us who also work with women, how long are we going to keep working with mothers who abuse their children so they stop doing it? How is it possible that, just in case, because of her complaint, with no evidence or anything, they put me on a restraining order? The judge answered, it's to preserve the physical integrity of the alleged victim. And I said, if it were the other way around, and if I were the respondent, if the children came to my house on a visitation schedule, I went crazy and hit one of them in the head with a stick, I fractured his skull and caused him the same injury, the mother caused him, what happens in that case? No, you go to prison. Why would I go to prison? Because you are the father. In England, the founder of the first shelter for victims of domestic violence, Aaron Pizzey, speaks against the current system that treats the defendant as guilty.
And as I took the women in, I looked at the first 100 women that had came in with their children. And of the first 100, 62 could be described as violent as the partners that they left. So it never has been a gender issue. These lies and false figures and statistics have been disseminated internationally through the Western world, and men have been deemed as perpetrators, not because they happen to be violent, but because they happen to be men.
40 years since you opened that first refuge.
Yes.
And just remind us, just before I let you go, sorry, just remind us what happened. You had to leave the country for quite a long time, didn't you?
Well, because what I'm saying now, there were huge pickets against me. And I was threatened, yes, for daring. This is $1 million industry, domestic violence. The women who control it are not about to let any kind of evidence in that's going to take away the money.
What do you mean by that?
They're not going to share the money with anybody.
But why do you describe it as $1 million industry?
Because it is. It's,
In what way?
The National Federation of Women's Aid gets something like 12 million from the government, let alone all the rest of it.
So you're saying they're manipulating the government in order to continue
what they always
to...
have.
You have to go to couples therapy, therapy with children. And you have to have the reports, social environmental reports, etc. This in some cases is useful and positive, but only in some cases. But systemizing it, making it a standard procedure, a lot of people make a living out of this. We have to bear in mind the huge amount of professionals from all these fields who make a living out of the conflict. We interview the lawyers of both parties, the therapists of both parties, the school, interviews with the man alone, interviews with a man and a relative of his, several interviews with the woman, with her entire family, with her parents, with her brothers, with the mother and the children, not with the father and the children. Even though these interviews were conducted within the framework of a rebonding ordered by a judge, the center did not allow the father to see or talk with his children. For me, it's just business. And by this I don't mean, like many people say, a big conspiracy. There's no need for a conspiracy. So the prolongation of the conflict, the state's intervention, and the perpetuation of that state of affairs leads to a huge amount of people living off many unresolved cases, and this is prejudicial to the children. I haven't seen my daughter Frida for 6 years and a half. Sadly, it's been over 7 years. With all the comings and goings since I last saw my daughter, I haven't been allowed to see my daughter in 7 years. The loss of the relationship, the destruction of the bond, is a sheer attack to the identity of someone who, one day, will be an adult, but who has lost the opportunity to bind a structure of values and experiences as a result of having lost contact with the father. And this is very serious. Social and psychic identity are not built out of the static presence of two people placed there by a civil registry. They're built out of the interaction with a lot of people, the media. Everything is important for the construction of identity. Therefore, the absence of one parent, the absence of a man, is not serious. There are feminists in Spain, they're called feminazis, who strictly adhere to the idea that children have to be with the mother, since she is better prepared, is in better conditions, etc., etc. It's a chauvinist idea, absolutely chauvinist, which goes against the principles of equality to which we all aspire. When a father is excluded from his child's life, that child suffers an irreversible damage, because he considers he doesn't have the right to love both parents. He doesn't have the right to build his identity based on the identification with the mother and the father. He hasn't formed in his head an idea of a family that allows him to feel confident in life. And we also have to think of all these events lead to kids having different kinds of psychological issues. This puts them in a situation where immediately, or in the long run, they will experience guilt. A guilt that will not allow them to become fully accomplished in life. This is serious because they learn to use the substitution technique. He is no good because my mom says so. So the new one will be good enough. And it's never the same as the father figure, be it the grandfather, a maternal uncle, or a new husband. Because he really needs to have the figure of his own father. Being with my mother and his boyfriend led me to not only grow apart from my father on an emotional and physical level, since they took me 155 miles away from him, but also to become suspicious of him, feeling he was the bad guy. Something very frequent in these cases. I was 11 at the time, and my mom, the person you usually trust the most, was telling me my father was causing nothing but trouble, and I unwillingly bought that. I won't deny I didn't think awful things of my father then. In fact, I was angry at him for a long time. And what happens is that I stick to the image my mother projects. And because of that, I started having a bad relationship with my father, and I went through very complicated situations. I got to the point of not wanting him with me when I got my primary school diploma. It's a very complex situation, and if you don't know the other side of the story, it's more difficult to judge. I haven't been able to see my daughter Luna in 7 years. I've been fighting for the custody of my daughter for 8 years. I haven't kissed or seen my daughter for 20 years. If you are a loving parent, then wait. You have to put up with the pain. You have to cope with it. But if you wait, if you don't press for it, and try to get information from your lawyers, if you have lawyers, or from any person who gives you information about your children, then you know what's going on. The stereotypical idea indicates that within the family circle, children are looked after by the mother, just like women take care of the house. Whereas the income for the family's economy rests upon the father, who becomes the family financier and protector, providing as much money as they can, not being economically absent, providing, if possible, something extra for their kid's life, to save money. Just wait, you will see them again. We are usually contacted by 1,000 people a year. Either fathers, mothers, grandparents, uncles, and siblings who are being prevented from seeing the children. In our association, we are contacted by nearly 8 to 10 people per week. A little less than half of them are from other provinces. We have 144 families registered who are affected by the violation of the visitation schedules. 600 people from Mar de la Plata have contacted us. The problem of obstruction of contract is already applicable to the entire country and worldwide. Fathers of the obelisk for the children. I can't see them, and at my age, I'm 90 years old. I cry every day at home. They make me come one day. I travel for 1,000 kilometers and they tell me, we put off the audience until next week. I come back the following week and they put it off until the following week. And I spend my time traveling thousands of kilometers and I can't have contact even though there is an order from the Domestic Violence Interdisciplinary Office stating the relationship must be immediately reestablished. The court gave me a visitation schedule of 8 Wednesdays. The mother never showed up, and they didn't give her any penalty. And I haven't seen my daughter for 2 years and a half. They forbid contact with me, the grandfather and the father. The boy suffers for us because he doesn't see us. It's been 3 years, and I haven't heard from him again. I saw it on TV. I'm a grandmother looking for her grandchild. The papers are there. I want justice. I want to see my son. In this country, due to a badly written paragraph, anyone can be separated from their children. The judges know we won't put up anymore with this carelessness we have lived in for so long. When this proposal was launched, I supported it because I believe the struggle for the children is important so that other children don't have to go through the same things I did. We want to see our kids and our kids want to see us. While men have time to talk to the media, chain themselves in front of the courts, demonstrate at the obelisk, or go to different courts, etc., women have to take children to therapy, go themselves to therapy, go to the hearings, take the children to the doctor, wake them up in the morning, take them to school, write authorization notes, help them do the homework, buy medicine, organize birthday parties, go to work. I got exhausted. I will recover my daughters no matter what. After all that time, they were about to give me the visitation schedule, but then it was denied. They immediately sent me to another judge. I chained myself for the first time, so that the new judge would see me quickly. Otherwise, I'd have to wait another 6 years, after almost having the visitation schedule from the other judge. It's like I tell you, there's a dark force there you can't explain. Even my lawyers tell me, Diego, there's something here. We can't explain how they shelve your file. They tell us they're going to do something and then they don't. Everything against you. They don't listen to you. It's like the judges are not on the girl's side, but on the mother's side. I sometimes ask myself whether the judges involved in each case have grandchildren, children, and if they have a soul. We keep pictures and videos of the girls. But at times, we want to remove the pictures because it hurts so much you can't take it. Besides, we didn't do anything. We didn't have anything to do with any of the fights. Human beings can have as parents. So we ask ourselves, what's the conflict with us? It makes you very angry, so much injustice. So much suffering in vain. Let's see, my little girls. I hope you're okay. The daily ritual. Bianquita, Carmela. I love you. Daddy is here. Father Cornet. I'm going to name myself Daddy. This is a video recorded by Diego's daughter. This is a message for your honor. Today is October 15th, 2012. I need to tell my truth.
y necesito contar mi verdad.
When I went to the court, I can't remember the exact date.
No puedo decir bien la fecha, no me acuerdo.
I said I don't want to be with my father. I absolutely regret that.
Me arrepiento muchísimo.
And I said I didn't need to see him.
Necesitaba verlo.
I was manipulated
Me
again.
manipularon. Otra vez.
I do want to be with my dad. I do need him. How can it be that at my age, I don't have my father with me because I can't see him? I know we're going to be fine. They just have to give us the chance. But if nobody realizes, they think this is the best for us, but they're not even listening to us. I think they should listen to us since it's our decision. Not my mother's, not my grandmother's, not the lawyers. It's our decision. We are going to be with our dad, not them. So, this video has been in possession of the judge since 2012, but she still has not seen her dad.
Padres separados entendieron que lo que había que hacer era modificar el Código Civil. Y después de años de tramitación parlamentaria, el Senado aprobó por fin y en forma unánime.
One day they decided to split up, and as a result they lost their children's custody. That dates back to the 19th century, and in most cases grants custody to the mother. The civil code has to be revised. After years of parliamentary proceedings, the Senate finally and unanimously passed the law called Father's Love. It grants shared custody of children in case of separation. Couples may break up, but parents must never be separated as long as the children are alive. Therefore, that responsibility needs to be kept at all times. It's not just for the mother, they have to agree on who is responsible for the children. And if they don't come to an agreement, the judge has to resolve it. Today, Sergio sees his children because the mother lets him. The custody of the child hit by the mother was never reversed, and the case was closed. Today, Guillermo can see his child 3 times per week and has requested custody. Mother and father, equal rights and responsibilities. Yura still cannot see his son. Michaela and Belen, Daddy loves you. San Martin family courts, obstructors of family bonds. Hector can see his daughters once a week. Diego and his daughters are still forbidden by the judge to see each other. The judge gave Claudio custody because his daughter requested to live with him. But an appeals court reversed custody without a social worker's evaluation. She was forcibly returned to her mother. Communication with her father was stopped. Claudio and her schoolmates marched for her to be able to speak to them. So you just sat through my English dub of Erasing Dad, which took me quite some time to record. I really wish there was a film similar to this made in the United States that was free to all, that really helped illustrate the serious issue we have here and the completely unconstitutional and immoral family court system that we have here in the United States, there are millions of parents in this country and millions of children who have no access to their parents, and millions of parents who have no access to their kids. And there's been a public outcry about the families being separated at the border, and yet there's millions of American citizens who were born and raised here who have no access to their own children, and millions of children who have no access to their parents. And there's not enough being done about it. And we need to change the system. The default should be 50-50 custody in all cases, unless one of the parents has a serious criminal past, like bank heists, heroin smuggling, something really serious. Other than that, it should be 50-50. That should just be the default. And there shouldn't be child support at all, because all child support does is incentivize one of the parties to keep the kids from having a relationship with the other party. That's all child support does. And I understand that these do-gooders wanted child support as a method of, making sure that guys weren't going around having kids with all these people and then just bailing. And I get that, and I'm sure that does happen occasionally, but all I've seen in my life is child support incentivizing the abuse of children by making one of the parents into a victim that is not allowed to see their own kids. So we need to completely revamp our legal system regarding custody, regarding divorce, regarding that, all of it. It's just absolutely ludicrous the way it is right now. It's horrible for kids, it's horrible for adults, and it's horrible for society. People want to talk about gun control, they want to talk about all these different issues. Most of the mass shooters grew up without a dad. Most people who are victimized by pedophiles didn't have a dad in their home. Most people who commit suicide lacked access to one or of their parents. This is a serious issue that's affecting our entire society. And for some reason, there's just silence about it, just absolute silence about it. And thank you to the authors of this film. This is a great film, and we really need something like this for the United States. More importantly, we need the unconstitutional family court eliminated. We should have a jury of our peers, and everybody should have rights to their children unless it's been proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that one of the other parents has done something horrible in the past, either to the kid or to somebody else. We just need serious change in this country. Thank you for watching.